Welcome everyone to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. Appreciate you joining me as always. And it's the off season now. So from here on out until we get to the combine, which will be in a couple weeks, and I will be in Indianapolis for that. Always look forward to that annually. And then after that, it's the NFL draft, which is in Green Bay, at Lambeau Field in that area. So looking forward to that as well. But until we get to those time frames, we're still going to talk about the Commanders. We're still going to talk about, what they're going to be doing this offseason leading up to the draft, leading up to the combines. What are they going to do when the free agency signing period comes up? And this is a football team that, despite everything that they did this year and how miraculous it was for them to get to the NFC Championship game, there's still quite a few holes that they need to fill if they want to take the next step. And the next step is being in the Super Bowl. The next step is beating a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been in the Super Bowl now 2 out of the past 3 years. And despite last year, an epic meltdown, we could very well be looking at a Super Bowl having this game be 3 straight years if Philadelphia didn't implode like they did last year. So what does Washington have to do? Before we get into that, if you want to follow me, you can do so very easily. All you have to do is follow me on social media at Lake Lewis Jr. And then you can subscribe to this podcast at the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. You can subscribe to it on audio version, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and now it's on Pandora as well. And then if you want to watch it, which you might be doing right now, you can watch it and subscribe to it on YouTube at the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. The Washington Commanders, we know that they had just an incredible year this year, finishing at 14-6 on the season. If you look at the number of games that they won this year, they totally eclipsed the amount that they had over the previous 2 seasons, which was 12 wins. So they won 2 more than they did over the past 2 years combined. So this was a football team that caught everyone off guard. They're going to have the NFL Rookie of the Year. Matter of fact, it's already been announced as far as Jaden Daniels being the Pepsi Zero Sugar Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he's deserving of that. This is a generational talent, a guy that's transformed this franchise, that has everybody thinking now that the Commanders are an it team right now. They're not a team that, had a nice run and that's it, it's over. No, this is a team that, if you look at the history of the league, history bodes well for Washington next year. All you have to do is go back and look at a team that they beat this year in the playoffs, the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions were, most of the year, the best team in the NFC. It's debatable if Philly caught up to them towards the end because of the injuries that Detroit had, but there's no question that Detroit was the cream of the crop in the NFC pretty much all year. Last year, Detroit lost in the NFC Championship game, a game that they probably should have won against San Francisco out in California. They lost that game, and as opposed to, tucking their head and burying it in the sand, they felt like, what? We are that team now. We're a team that it should be Super Bowl or bust for us. And I think if you look at Washington and you look at Detroit and the similarities that are there, from a cultural standpoint, from a belief standpoint now in the team and the players, there's no reason for Washington to think anything less than we want to get to the Super Bowl next year. We legitimately feel like we can get there. And I think everyone will be a year better. They're going to have to fill, like I said, some holes, which we'll talk about here shortly. But for the most part, they have something that maybe Detroit didn't have. And I know, if you look at Jared Goff in Detroit and what he did this year, he had a great year, Pro Bowl caliber season. But the way he played in the playoffs, the way he played against Washington, it still has some people, there's a little murmur out there in the NFL community that where he hears stuff like, is he really the long-term answer for the Lions? I think for right now, he is. I mean, you're not going to get a rookie or another free agent to come in and just, pick up where he left off and exceed what he's done. I don't think that's the case. But I do hear that as kind of a murmur in the NFL community. You don't hear that in Washington. You don't hear that at all in Washington. What you're hearing in Washington is they have a franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. They have a quarterback that should have MVP next to his name in the very near future. And I've said that. I actually tweeted it out today that Washington has a player that's going to be a legit MVP candidate. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's as early as next year, because we know Adam Peters is going to go out and get this guy some more talent. He's going to surround him with more players to make Jaden Daniels even more dynamic, if you can believe that. So naturally, another year of seeing the field, another year of knowing what defenses throw at him, just another year of being comfortable with the speed of the pro game. He's going to be better just because of that. But now when you give him the weapons that he needs to go along with Terry McLaurin to see if maybe Zach Ertz does come back, but you get more weapons in that offense, a home run back, another wide receiver that demands, attention on that side of the field to open up even more for Terry. I'm telling you, this football team should be right back in the thick of things next year, despite having a much more harder schedule, which they will, despite not sneaking up on anyone anymore, despite probably being on 5 to 6 primetime football games because of Jaden Daniels and the success they had this year. They're not going to sneak up on anyone. But I think they got people this year, and people were like, well, no, you're not going to sneak up on them anymore. Well, guess what? They got you this year with not a whole lot of talent. And I've been saying this all year. I was harsh at first. I did say I thought this team was going to win 11 games, but I just meant from everything that was cohesive with them. But as the season progressed, and they kept winning, you clearly could see there's a whole nother level that this team can go to. There's a whole nother level the franchise can go to with more added talent, a bigger influx of talent. Because for me, I think they finished the year. My talent grade for them at the end of the year was a 74. 74 meaning collective 1 through 53 talent average grade. It was a 74. Okay. That's, that's average, and an average team talent wise with an elite quarterback. You see the difference. You saw what he did. He took them to the NFC Championship game. Now imagine an above average team talent wise, or a good team talent wise with an elite quarterback. Now you're talking about a legit Super Bowl contender. If you have elite talent to go with that elite quarterback, not only are you winning a Super Bowl, you're going to be in the running for a mini dynasty. You're going to be in the running of they can go back and back and back and back and back and back. Meaning, you look at 10 years of Jaden Daniels with elite talent, there's no reason for me to believe that young man could not get 3 Super Bowls under his belt, maybe even more. But that's what we're talking about. That's what separates the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what separates the Philadelphia Eagles. That's what separates those two programs, because to me, those are the 2 best programs in the NFL. I know Detroit was perhaps the best team in the NFC this year with everything they had going for them. But who's to say? If Detroit had beat Washington and the Eagles were to go into Detroit, I probably would have taken the Eagles myself in that game. I just think that when you look at the Eagles roster and you see a Saquon Barkley Pro Bowler, MVP candidate, you look at A.J. Brown, Pro Bowler at wide receiver, Dallas Goedert, Pro Bowler at tight end, Devontae Smith, borderline Pro Bowler. If he hasn't already been, he will be. So Pro Bowler receiver over there too. And then, of course, Jalen Hurts, Pro Bowl quarterback. Say what you want about that young man. All he does is win. And I've said it before. I'd rather win ugly than lose pretty. Okay? So Jalen Hurts wins ugly, but man, that guy's back in his 2nd Super Bowl in 3 years. He's been nothing but success persona ever since he's been the starting quarterback in Philadelphia. So you have to give credit where credit is due. And that's where I think Washington is now. I think Washington is right on the cusp of having something really special, really great for the long haul, not just for 1 year. They're not one and done. So for all you Commanders fans out there that are worried or, Was this just a nice feel-good story for us this year and then it goes back to reality? No, the reality is that you have a really good young football team that's going to get even better, and they're going to bring in more talent because they have the salary cap. They're the third most money to spend. They have their draft picks, and we already saw what Adam Peters can do with those draft picks last year. I had someone tell me, that the draft wasn't that special. They were trying to find every hole in every rookie for them this year. And I, kindly retaliated. Jay Daniels, their top pick, was the NFL Rookie of the Year, okay? Their 2 or 3, I think, second-round picks, Johnny Newton ended up starting at D tackle, okay? Mikey Sanders still was a starting corner on the outside. And if you keep going through the draft and looking at who they had, Brandon Coleman started at left tackle. Ben Sinnott didn't play as much as I think some thought he was, including myself. But sometimes, sometimes it takes a guy a year or two to get it, to figure it out at the pro level. And I think he'll be just fine. Is he, a top flight elite tight end in the making? The verdict's still out. We don't know that yet. I probably would say the team could, maybe upgrade at tight end if Zach Ertz, doesn't come back, or maybe there's a succession plan, for Zach Ertz to groom Ben Sinnott and another tight end, so you can have 2 tight end sets. So that's still there. But you look at the draft that Adam Peters, put together, and it was pretty good. I mean, it actually was really good. Luke McCaffrey gave this football team something this year. Obviously, he'll have another offseason to get better, to come back next year and be more of a viable option in the offense. And then you have the kid Hampton, who's going to, they moved him to linebacker. He bulked up. You didn't see a lot of him this year, but I know the coaches are very high on this young man. So their draft was actually a really good draft. Jean Baptiste from Notre Dame, the defensive end. Yeah, I mean, this guy has some twitch to him. He's a pass rusher. But, again, there were veterans in front of him, so it was tough for him to crack the rotation. But I think next year he'll be a guy that will be more in the mix. So if you look at that class, there's no reason to believe that with a full year now of talent evaluation, of seeing guys up close and personal, Adam Peters will be even more equipped to have a better draft, believe it or not, than what they had last year. I'm not saying they're going to have a better player come out of this draft than Jaden. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, from a collection, a unit, I could see that this draft might end up being even better. And the reason for that is because, again, when Adam Peters was hired last year, there wasn't a whole lot of time to really, fold his sleeves up and get busy. He had to get with Dan Quinn, and they had to figure out some things. They still had to put together a roster because they got rid of so many of the leftovers that were still on the roster from Ron Rivera. So now, if you think about everything that's going on, I'm telling you, it just looks like it is a new day that's going to stay around for a while. Washington is chatter around the league. The Commanders are one of those franchises now that's kind of in vogue. They're a franchise now that the free agents around the league, they're looking at. I've heard the conversations with the likes of Myles Garrett, who wants to be traded out of Cleveland. If he does become available, Washington has the resources and the capital to maybe make a run. And you're not going to tell me a player like that, one of the best 5 players in all of football, regardless of if he's 30 or not, he's still the man. He's still a guy that demands a double team. He's still a guy that's going to get after your opposing quarterback. And you can't tell me Washington couldn't have used that in Philadelphia. You can't tell me Washington couldn't have used that against the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, or the Dallas Cowboys, or Tampa in week 1. You can't tell me that they couldn't have used that in every game. It would have made them even better. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm sure Adam Peters and his pedigree looks at. They're going to go out and get some more dogs that are going to make this team even more dangerous. I think a lot of people have to understand too, you're going to start hearing about all the big name guys, and that's just the history of this franchise over the last 3 decades. But it's a new group now. It's a more responsible, adult-driven, franchise. Josh Harris isn't just going to write blank checks, if it doesn't make sense. Adam Peters isn't going to go out and get free agents to come in here who have names, but their production is dropped off. He's not going to do that. And Dan Quinn's not going to want a player in the locker room who may have all the talent in the world, but may be one of those people that you can't approach. Maybe one of those guys that doesn't buy into the culture. And I think that that's something that some of the fans of this team, who put out stuff, who put out information about, they could get this person, get that person. Well, if you're not hearing it from us in the media, you're probably not going to hear it. It's probably not true. Okay, let's just put it out there. And I can tell you guys right now, Myles Garrett's in play. I know that for sure. But I also can tell you that a lot of these other big name free agents that you're hearing out there aren't. Okay, I know that this franchise wants to build through the draft and they want to develop players. Now, if you have an opportunity to go out and get a special talent like a Myles Garrett, you're going to do it. Absolutely. As long as you're not mortgaging the future. And there's no reason for a team that just went to the NFC Championship, like I said, with not a lot of frontline talent, to go out and get a frontline player, but have to give up a lot of the pieces that helped make the nucleus of this team so special. So again, Myles Garrett is a good locker room guy. Absolutely. So I think he would fit in with Washington tenfold, but some of the other guys, I'm not going to mention their names right now because it's not that time. But there are some guys out there that have a lot of talent, but I question how would they fit with the culture that's in place here? Because as you saw, culture means everything. It absolutely does. This football team won games as a collective unit that believed in each other, that played for the man to his left, played for the man to his right. Okay? That won football games for this team. But ultimately, when you play a Philadelphia, you need the talent to go along with the culture. And that's where I think this football team takes the next step next year. Look, it's the offseason. It's exciting times. We have the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. The Eagles and the Chiefs are going for their three-peat. And at the beginning of the year, I predicted the Super Bowl was going to be the Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens. And I had the I had the Baltimore Ravens beating the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And I had the Baltimore Ravens, ironically, playing the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl. Well, both those predictions were wrong. But as far as the championship games, yeah, I had Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, and I had Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. So I got that part right. But yeah, I was wrong as far as who's in the Super Bowl. But looking ahead to this game on Sunday, I'm excited for it. I think these are clearly the two best teams in all of football. As I said before, the two most sound organizations. And I know people are like chirping at Nick Sirianni, and they still feel like there's still a little bit of disgruntlement in Philadelphia, if you can say that. I don't think so. I just think that that's their culture. That's their style. It's abrasive. It's just in your face. And sometimes that doesn't bode well, to a lot of people who don't like that style, that kind of braggadocious style, but they're backing it up. And they get one more chance to back it up for a Super Bowl trophy Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are no stranger to this game. They're going for 3 in a row, something that's never been done in the history of the modern Super Bowl era. So, this is going to be one of those games that, for me, I think it just boils down to the most important position on the field, and it's Patrick Mahomes. And if you go back 2 years ago when Kansas City beat, the Eagles, I personally thought the best player on the field that day was Jalen Hurts. I mean, he had a hell of a football game. To me, I thought he was the MVP of the game, but he lost. And he did have that one turnover that Kansas City, turned into points. So you look at little things like that. That's what this football game on Sunday is going to come down to, is who's going to protect the football, who's going to be able to run the football. We know Saquon Barkley is probably going to be able to do some damage against Kansas City. But I think on the flip side, Isaiah Pacheco, I think, is a guy that we have to keep our eyes on for Kansas City, because I do think he will be able to run the football against against Philadelphia. But like I said, we all know what this game's going to come down to. It's going to come down to number 1-5. It's going to come down to Patrick Mahomes, and it always does. He's no stranger to the moment. He's used to this. On the flip side, Jalen Hurts is used to this as well. So I don't think you're going to see any nerves and people coming in, can't believe I'm in the Super Bowl. I'm in the Super Bowl. No, they both deservingly needed to be there, and they knew they were going to get there. And that's why I think this is going to be one of the best Super Bowls we've had in a long time. The one 2 years ago was pretty damn good, but I think this one has a chance to eclipse that and go down as one of the top 2 or 3 Super Bowls ever. I truly, truly believe that we're in store for something special. I think it comes down to the final possession of the game, and whichever quarterback has the ball wins the football game. I think Philadelphia can beat Kansas City. I really do. And I also obviously know that Kansas City can beat Philadelphia. So 20 minutes into this, I just wanted to come on for about 20, 25 and give you some predictions, give you my thoughts on the game. Well, my MVP of this football game is, and you see it, look right over here. It's Saquon Barkley. Folks, I'm actually taking the Philadelphia Eagles to upset the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's not an upset. They're both great football teams. But it's just something about the Eagles this year. And having seen them, obviously covering the Commanders and seeing these guys up close, and then being in Philadelphia 2 weeks ago and seeing just everything they can do. They're a tough football team to beat because they're not going to beat themselves. They're going to let you beat yourself. Kansas City doesn't turn the ball over as much, but Patrick sometimes will put some up there. I think this is going to be a football game that comes down to turnovers. Whoever literally wins the turnover battle in this game. I know you're like, well, tell me something I don't know. But this is literally 2 good teams, and that's what this boils down to. Whoever controls, the time of possession on the clock, run the football, and don't turn the football over wins this football game. But I'm taking the Eagles to win this football game. I'm taking the Eagles 27, and I'm taking Kansas City 26. I think it's going to be that close. I think it comes down to a game-winning field goal at the end. And I think this time, as opposed to it being Kansas City, I'm taking Philadelphia to win this game. So I might be going up against the odds. Man, something about that NFC East love, man. And I know that's a rival. I know, the way some of the fans carried on 2 weeks ago. Not towards me, ironically. I had a great time up there at the link. I really did. The fans treated my better half. They treated us like gold. And I know that wasn't the case for everyone, and that's unfortunate. And it's a shame on those bad apples, those fans who caused that. But it wasn't everyone. And I think we all have to understand every fan base has some good ones and unfortunately has some bad ones as well. But for me, I had a good time. I did. But I just think from a football standpoint that I saw that Philadelphia has every facet of their team covered. They're going to get a center back in this game, which will be big. And we already know about their defense. It's going to be interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes moves around their safeties with his eyes, Cooper DeJean, and the rookie corner. It's going to be Mitchell. It's going to be really interesting to see how he can move them around with his eyes. And then underneath, we already know about Travis Kelce. And I will say this. Zach Ertz had a huge game in the middle of the field against Philadelphia. So that's something, if you're a Chiefs fan, bodes well for you with Travis Kelce, against Braun in the middle of the field and all these guys. I think Kansas City is going to be in this game. Of course, they're the Super Bowl champions, the reigning 2-time champions. But again, I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles in this football game. I just am. It's just a gut feeling I have. I'm taking them 27-26. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about today. I think I'm going to fire this back up tomorrow, give you some more insight and break it down a little bit more as far as numbers, type of players that the team can go after from a salary cap standpoint, maybe from a cultural standpoint, how they fit in. So we'll get in tomorrow with more players, more names, a little bit more stuff. So have your pens and pads ready for that. And then next week, I am going to have another fan show. So if you're watching this and you want to be on that show with us, we've had a great time with the supporters of mine and fans who've come on. We keep it clean. We keep it fun. It's all love. If you want to be on the fan show, all you have to do is write me and let me know that you want to be on there. You can DM me here on YouTube or you can email me. LakeLewis@gmail.com is very simple. LakeLewisJr@gmail.com. Excuse me. Very simple. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun with that next week. So my friends, We're going to have a good one for you tomorrow. So make sure you tune in at the same time, same place, right here on the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. Have a good one.